And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. As you might already be able to tell, I do have a little bit of a cold, so please bear with me as I scratch my way through this one. But to help me out this week, I do not have my usual co-host. I have the producer, our wonderful Eureka Wheeler, here to help me, like I said, scratch through this podcast. How are you doing, Eureka, on a Tuesday evening?
I'm good. I hope you feel better than you sound, buddy. And I'm coming over. I'm getting over my own little thing. I think we're all being sick in the area. So I hope you got a nice tea or water or something on the side there to help the throat out. But other than that, we're all good, baby. What's up?
Yeah, nothing much is up on my end other than this. Obviously, I am trying to kick it, and I do have some water to help me get through that. But yeah, I think I sound worse than I actually feel. Otherwise, I feel pretty good. So if I'm coughing, like I said, please bear with me. I apologize, but the show must go on, as many a great. Let's not say great on my end, but many an other great person have said. So tonight for RBLR Sports, we are covering the Rowdies. That's what we usually do, and this week is no different. We will wrap up our league-wide preview with the Western Conference leaders. That is the top-tier teams out in the Western Conference, so we'll get through all of those. And yeah, Eureka, good thing that we're doing it now because the first USL games of the year are happening this weekend. They don't include us, which I should know, but the fact that the USL is here, we're in a match week with games coming up, that's already crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the docket right now, and I'm already looking at Memphis and Las Vegas. What's Las Vegas going to look like after we talked about them? Pittsburgh Riverhounds play New Mexico United. North Carolina, their first ever game in the USL Championship since coming back. Charleston Battery. I mean, there's a lot of really, really, really interesting games that are on the docket already, and we just get to sit back and kind of watch, from afar or on the Golazo Network. I think is where most of the games are going to be on this week. So we got a new television partner on that end to experience. Is that going to be better or worse than the ESPN Plus? We'll get into some other things, some news that happened today, but I just wanted to say first, all of the content that you and Carlos have been doing over the course of the off season, I think we should take at the very top of the program. I wanted to take some time and say, if you're somehow getting onto this for the first time as a listener, go back on the playlist.
Yeah.
Interviews with the head coach of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, Robbie Nielsen. We have that. Player interviews from over at the end of the year, before Lucky retired. We have that. Not retired, but left the Rowdies. Nanshoff. We got so a little bit of the past, a little bit of the future, everything we gave you over this offseason. But now it is all culminated in one more weekend without Tampa Bay Rowdies football. So it's exciting. And I know, trust me, as a producer here, I know how hard it is that you guys work to come up with topics to talk about every single week for the listeners. But I took 2 minutes here to say you guys have done a great job. It is worth your time, and it's evergreen stuff. It is evergreen things that you can go back and you can listen to these interviews and go through kind of what we've done over this offseason. And it'll get you ready for this season, but it also maybe take you in the time machine and maybe learn some things about our past of this massive, massive, massive club.
Yes, that is a very good way to put that. But as you said, Eureka, we do have to talk about the future because the future is now, folks.
Yes.
That is yet another cliche that I have been able to force into this very early episode. But let's get into it because there is some USL news. Beforehand, please, of course, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and any major podcast platform. And, of course, follow RBLR Sports on social media like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you are. Now, the USL news. Let us get into that. The Rowdies have struck a deal with a local broadcast partner. So we were already talking about this a little bit. The Rowdies are going to be on ESPN Plus because the USL Championship has been on ESPN Plus. This will be the 9th season that we have that same partnership going with ESPN on their streaming service. So every USL game, Championship, League One, that will be on there. You can see the Rowdies on there. If you do not have an ESPN Plus subscription and you do not plan to get one, don't worry. There are other ways that you can watch our games. There will be a lot of games, like you said, Eureka, on the Golasso network through CBS Sports. Those are actually free to watch if you have the right hookup, which I believe is just being able to get the app or Pluto TV. So yeah, that's amazing right there. A couple of those games, obviously, like I said, those will be our games that get put up on the national broadcast, and we'll obviously see those there. But there is also a local broadcast partner now, and that is Tampa Bay 44. So I just want to go through a little bit of the press release that came with that, and then we can talk about it on the other side. But the Tampa Bay Rowdies announced today that, not today specifically, but announced today that the club has entered a partnership with Tampa Bay 44 that will see Rowdies home matches broadcast locally throughout Tampa Bay for the 2024 championship season. Now, I will just say 16 of our home matches will be on air on Tampa Bay 44. There will be one specific game that isn't. That is April 27th versus New Mexico United. The reason that is not on the Tampa Bay 44 airways is because it's going to be on the CBS Sports Network. So there we go. Yeah. Everything will be covered one way or another. That one will actually be on the national broadcast schedule, which is pretty nuts if you ask me. Tampa Bay 44, which I will note is owned and operated by Paramount Global, so probably in line with Paramount Plus, CBS, all that stuff. Yep. They first began producing out of St. Pete in 1968, and the station now has a reach that goes from Brooksville to Port Charlotte, pretty big, and from Kissimmee in the east over to the Gulf of Mexico. And the station was also a broadcast home for the Rowdies in the club's original era of the 70s and the 80s. So I think that all of that is pretty awesome to note. And like I said, if you do not have any of these other ways to watch the team, that would be an ESPN Plus subscription. Maybe you're not that tech savvy. You don't want to mess around with the CBS Sports app. We still have ways for you to watch Tampa Bay Rowdies games. We are reaching so many people with all of these different options. And I think that that's incredible for the league overall, but definitely the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yeah, as this club tries to grow and become ingrained into all of Tampa Bay, it is very important that they strike a deal. Like we've been waiting for some sort of news like this for years now, where I mean, look, just to bring it behind the curtain, like when we do our watch parties, which we still haven't announced stuff yet, that's still in the works now. But even going into a place and the first question they're asking is like, hey, how do I view these games? You know,
right?
And so these are the home games. But now, if you're in Lakeland or Pasco or Tampa proper, and you just can't get over to St. Pete, unfortunately, you could turn on your television and over the airwaves on CW44. You're going to be able to watch the green and gold plays, and that's very, very big because. Look, you have to get a presence on television in some form or fashion. And if the league is going to be pushing towards, what could very much be the present in the future in streaming, it helps to just be like, well, if you have a TV, you can watch the Rowdies.
Exactly.
You don't even need the internet. You can watch the Rowdies, at least, 16 of the games. So I think this is huge. I think it's a very, very good way to kind of honor the past. This whole season, the marketing is about kind of modernizing the past, the hoop sleeves and everything is the Rowdies are always going to have one foot kind of in the legendary past that they have and one foot in the future. And I think that this kind of checks all the boxes in that regard. So I'm very, very, very happy that they did this.
Yeah. And as you said, all of this is about reaching as many people as possible.
Yes.
There are going to be some number of people who, I mean, probably not a lot of people who don't have the internet at all, but there are going to be some number of people who don't want to use the internet to watch these games. Yeah. If we can just give them an option, this is going to be a lot easier for everybody who cares about the Rowdies to get to actually watch them. And, maybe we get a few more fans that we didn't have before. That's the name of the game
Yes.
in second division soccer. I mean, that's the name of the game in second division sports across this country. It really doesn't matter, but yeah, it's getting more eyeballs. And I think that this is one of the best ways that they have tried to go and do that recently, other than all the many deals that the league is working on overall. So I'm very pleased with it personally.
Yeah.
And that will take us through our I think all of the news that we have for broadcast partnerships. Am I right with that, Eureka?
Yep. Unfortunately, we're still working on the rights to the away games on our YouTube channel. But no, I'm just joking. But one day, James.
Yeah, when RBLR can broadcast, then folks,
Hell yeah,
then it'll all be
brother.
It'll all be different. But to continue with our USL news, I do want to say as well, the US Open Cup reformatting for 2024 is out now. I don't want to spend forever on this because it is a topic that Eureka and I could probably spend a lot more time on than we really should. But I will just say that the United Soccer League plans to field 47 clubs in the 2024 Lamar Hunt US Open Cup. I believe that includes all of USL Championship, USL League One, and then it should as well include the USL League Two. All of the clubs that are involved in that competition as well. So there aren't going to be any USL clubs that are skipping out, let's say. Something that you will find with clubs from another league in America. But with the Open Cup being the oldest competition for soccer in this country, I cannot believe that anybody would not want to take part in it. But I guess it's just unfortunate that I am not the person who's in charge of who does and doesn't. But at this point, like I said, all of the USL teams will be taking part. And I will also note that the USL League Two club, should enter in round one. And the USL League One team should enter across round three. And then the round of 32, when the USL Championship club should also start to enter. So that's what we're looking forward to, as I think, Eureka, two fans of the US Open Cup itself. I didn't know that we had to be fans of the competition to, try and support it, but here we are. So we know that the Rowdies will be taking part one way or another.
This is a vital competition to the American game. And so if I'm pleading that the U.S. Soccer Federation figures this out, because, we all kind of know why MLS, none of this benefits MLS other than like continuing tradition. Like they win, I guess from their perspective, they win it all the time. They don't make a lot of money on it. And they have to play games. It's such a bad thing for their schedule and whatever. And that's why they've established the Leagues Cup and because a gigantic moneymaker for them. And it's all risk with no reward, I guess, in their eyes, because like when the Houston Dynamo come to Al Lang Stadium and almost lose, that doesn't help the MLS. It's wonderful for American soccer. It's wonderful for the Tampa Bay Rowdies and everyone who gets to go watch an MLS team come play, a quote unquote second division side. But since we don't have a pyramid, this is the only way that a team from a lower division can go toe to toe with a first division or an upper division team. Like when Villages comes to Al Lang and Nona comes to Al Lang and things like that. For the first time, people are learning about those things, and there's usually youth sides attached to all those. And now I know those. I've seen them. I've watched them play against the Rowdies, and then I've also conversely watched the Rowdies play, Orlando in Orlando Stadium, and I've watched them play, the Seattle Sounders, and we beat them in Al Lang, and those are the kind of memories that we can forge in the Open Cup. All that to say that. I guess it's a compromise. They went from not wanting to be in the competition at all to saying, we'll just put our MLS Next Pro teams, and 8 of our MLS clubs will come in, and I guess 4 of them automatically get hosting rights for some reason. But I say that to plead to U.S. Soccer, but also to applaud the fans and supporter group of St. Louis, who I believe have led the charge in being the most vocal of the people who are trying to save this cup. And I really do hope that other supporters groups, not because look, all of us in the second division are going to obviously raise our banners and say, like, we want this opportunity. Please don't take it from us. It's the one opportunity that the Tampa Bay Rowdies have to make the CONCACAF Champions League. It's so undeniably unfair for the rest of the soccer pyramid against the MLS tier. So if more supporters groups are able to, I mean, look, say what you want about Orlando, but like they're the local group, and it would be amazing if our rivals in Orlando could be yet another force for the solidarity that needs to happen in Major League Soccer to force the money and force the hand that the powers that be to see that, like, this does matter, because I think they think they can sweep it under the rug. And so again, that's my long diatribe, but I think it's very important that not just fans of the second division, but all of the fans of American soccer see the value in the Open Cup competition and fight for its existence to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna try to add on to that because
Yeah.
Eureka, you have covered everything that we need to, and
All right.
I am in total agreement with everything that you've said, and
Yeah.
like total agreement.
Yeah.
I really hope that if there is more pressure on MLS, then they will realize that what they're doing is stupid. But in all honesty, if everything comes down to dollars and nothing comes down to anything else, then soccer will ultimately suffer.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really think that
Yeah.
for this is not my point. This is something that a lot of other people have said. But for a league that constantly talks about how it wants to build traditions and build some history and what have you, hey, getting rid of a plus 100-year-old competition is not the way to do that. I will
Yeah.
just throw that
Yep.
out there.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I didn't want to spend forever on this because, like I
Sorry.
said, if we got no, you covered it adequately. I'm saying if we continued down this road, we would be here for another 50, 60 minutes, and then we
Yeah.
wouldn't have even started to talk about the other teams in the Western Conference. So
Yes.
I think that we have done adequate work for the way that you and I both feel about this. I'm almost certain I feel, we are speaking for Carlos as well here. So MLS, do the right thing if it's even possible within your hearts.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eureka, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, look, I said it earlier. All these guys did a lot of work over the course of the off season, and I want to make it known that, like, to keep the lights on in this place, we sell some T-shirts. So, like, look, the first thing I ask for free, you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button. We have almost 300 subscribers to this YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to this, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button. It absolutely helps us out, and it is absolutely free. And it's the one thing that you can do for free that helps us out to reach new people in the future. But if you happen to have a couple extra bucks in your pocket, tax time's around the corner, hop on to shop.rblrsports.com. We've got inspired merchandise. We try to make cool things that celebrate the fandom of the teams that we love. So there's stuff on there that celebrates the Rowdies and the Buccaneers and the Lightning and the Rays. The spring training is running the corner. I've got a couple new Rays inspired shirts up there, and all of that. I've got hats and T-shirts and everything all up on there. You can use a promo code COYR and you're going to get 10% off everything. So bring back the devil shirt from the Rays, the massive club, the from the Rowdies inspired stuff about my other shirt has hoops. Please. The link is in the description, shop.rblrsports.com. Use the promo code, save yourself some money and get yourself some cool merchandise, and helps us out and keeps the lights on and keeps us giving you content every single week.
Yes, exactly. All right, folks. Now, with that out of the way, we are moving into the part of the podcast that we originally wanted to go with, the final portion of our podcast before we get to covering just Rowdies games.
Yeah.
That's what we're all looking for.
Woo!
We got to do something here.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the Western Conference, as we said, could be divided into 3 teams, but I went with 2. So there will be a couple of teams I will say specifically 2 teams that I think could have been in a tier 2 if we did 3. As it happens, we had to bump them up into tier 1 because they weren't tier 2 material.
Yeah.
So, with the 1 and 2 tiers, the way that we did it, we're going to start with the team that everyone knows is always going to be tier 1. It almost doesn't matter what year it is. You just have to say the name and everybody knows who they are. It is Sacramento Republic. I mean, at this point, I don't even know, how much more we have to go through the team. We're going to do that anyway. Yeah. But it's Sacramento, folks. We know that they're going to be a tier 1 team out west.
Yeah, look, Sacramento Republic, what can we say about them? I mean, I think if we're looking at why they're probably the top of the Western Conference again, it's because they were already good with, I mean, Jack Gurr, I think leads the players that you'd want to talk about over there. He is an Englishman that is just on fire. I think he's got a couple MVP votes from some writers and content creators out there in the world. He play in that back line. I mean, it's just playing the right wing. He's just he can create. He can play midfield. He makes a lot of offense happen for Sacramento. But also Russell Cicerone, a very good forward in his own right, along with the wingbacks. But even if you get past all that, you have a very good defensive back three of Shane Wheat, Connor Donovan, Jared Temmer. And then if you get past all of that defense, you have goalkeeper of the year, Danny Vitiello, that you have to get by. So it sounds a lot like describing our team, where it's like, well, you've got this guy's good in the midfield and this guy's good in the striking and the now the goalkeeping and everything. They're far and away my favorite. They play a 3-4-3. They play pretty entertaining soccer. But then on the defense, they can slide those wingbacks into a 5-4-1. So that's what they've already had. Now, I would ask you what you feel about their stuff they've added. So adding Trevor Ammon, Rodrigo Lopez, Jonathan Ricketts, I think are 3 of the big additions you'd want to talk about. But I mean, what can we say about Sacramento other than just gushing over their roster? And I mean, they've been successful. I mean, speaking of the Open Cup, they almost won it. So it's this is a team that, although they didn't win the cup last year, I thought they were one of the favorites going into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I definitely did think they were one of the favorites. I think they're going to look to be one of the favorites again this year. Trevor Ammon coming in is going to be very interesting. He was the top scorer for the USL League One last year. So obviously that is going to be interesting to see how he deals with the transition to what is just going to be, a faster level of soccer. But otherwise, I think that this team is going to be just as good as always. They have the same, front office staff and the coaching staff and all that stuff that they've had for so long now. It's really hard to see where they don't have players that are ready to fill in for, anybody who would have left last year, let's say. But at the same time, the only thing that I'll say is I think that their squad might be a bit thin in terms of the depth. Okay. That is kind of a concern for me, but I mean, that is still a relatively low concern on the chart, I guess. They are looking to bring in a lot more youth players, it looks like, at this point. Everyone knows the name Davian Kimbrough, but he's probably a little ways away from the limelight, let's say. I think that there are going to be several other academy players that start to take over bigger roles, and I don't think that necessarily he will be one of them. If he is, amazing, because he's only 14 now? Yeah.
Insanity.
But I like I said, I don't think that he will be the main guy this year. I think it'll be some other guys from the academy. Regardless, they're going to have a good team. They have a great coaching staff, and they have, all of these pieces to put into one that I think it's just a matter of how far can they go. The only player that I really think them losing and will have an impact is central defender Dan Casey, who is now in the Scottish top division. I've seen him play there a couple of times, but yeah, it's very interesting how good they are always going to look. And I don't think that this year is going to be any different based on the roster that we're looking at.
Yeah, well, I guess we can move on to the next team. And look, we said Sacramento might have been the favorites to win it, but the team that actually did win it was Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising, coming off a campaign where they looked real up and down during the regular season. I remember when they had come to Al Lang, and we just absolutely laid the wood to them. Uh, and to think that that's the team that would end up winning the cup, the championship in the playoffs. You couldn't have told me that in that moment. Even talking to the Phoenix press that had come all the way for that game, they were in their post game. They were kind of dejected and just kind of like, this was a test. They didn't pass it. But there was turmoil. You'd have to maybe tell me a little bit more about. I mean, obviously, their head coach left, right? Guerra, former Rowdy Guerra, left to get his own little promotion, but the team's still pretty good on paper. I mean, I'm looking at them. I mean, because look, they're the main guy that I had picked out was Panos Armenakis. This dude is in the top percentiles of all of the things you'd want to forward to be. Goals scored, he's in almost the 90th percentile. 93rd percentile in shots, 89th percentile in shots on target, but also he can pass. I mean, he makes really good long ball passes. He's very accurate. He's in the 98th percentile of chances created, and he can cross the ball. He could kick the ball. He could do everything you want on offense. I mean, sometimes he can be dispossessed, I guess. But other than that, I mean, this dude is he creates when you give him space, and he also isn't afraid to fire the ball. So a lot of people get the redirections and the reflections from those kicks. How many times are we looking at a player in the box and we're just like, shoot it, just shoot it? There is no itchy trigger, or the finger's always itchy for Panos. He wants to fire it, and if you're just in the area, you're going to score a goal because of a redeflection. So they don't call those in soccer, but I think it's valuable when you get a guy that just can create for himself, but also either passing or shooting and redeflecting create for others. But they also added a bunch of, like, even though that they won the cup, and they've added MLS Next Pro Golden Boot winner Remy Cabral. They added Juan Azócar, Edgardo Rito, and a name that we all know very well around here, and that is right back Lawrence White. With all that said, there's a little bit of turmoil with the coaching staff, but they brought a new coach in. They look to build upon a championship season. What's your thoughts on Phoenix so far?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest loss of the offseason definitely was the coach.
Yeah.
And does that mean that they are a worse team? Probably not necessarily, because Juan Guerra, as good a coach as he can be, he was also very young. He was inexperienced in terms of just the number of years that he has had coaching. That doesn't mean that he isn't a good coach. Obviously, we saw them go on and win it, but the luck that went into Phoenix winning the title last year also should
Hell
be
of a
something
run.
that we noted.
Hell of a
because most of the goals, most of the games they played in the playoffs, they were down up until pretty late in the game. So it should be noted that they were, that doesn't mean that they're a bad team. Obviously, they went and won it, but it should be something to note that recreating that is going to be very difficult. So how are they going to do that? Well, they promoted one of the assistant coaches for the last couple of years, Danny Stone. He is the new Phoenix Rising head coach after being an assistant for a couple of years. And one of the assistants actually that is replacing him is former Tampa Bay Rowdy Darnell King. So that is pretty cool too. He is a Tampa native, and he won it last year with Phoenix Rising. Guess he figured the best thing you can do is go out on a win, and he retired to become a coach over there. And, again, I've said this before, I wish him the best of luck as a coach. I played with Darnell actually in high school. I don't know how much he would remember me, but he is a very good guy. He's a very nice guy. And, I'm sure that he will make a very good coach down the line too.
Yeah.
Now,
I hope we beat them by 1,000 every
exactly. At the same time, though, I hope we beat them.
time.
A couple of other big names to note for them having brought in this past offseason, though. You already mentioned Remy Cabral. He was the Golden Boot winner in MLS Next Pro.
Yep.
That doesn't mean, we don't know exactly what that means in terms of it translating, but
Sure.
obviously there are stats there,
Yeah.
something to back up. And I think that there will be something, some product on the field this year, too.
Yeah.
Lawrence Wyke is another player who can play all across the defense and the midfield. We saw him do it in Tampa
Yep.
Bay Rowdies colors.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate that he went to a team that I would say is probably one of our rivals, but
Yeah.
that's how it goes sometimes. And I think that it's going to be Phoenix's gain on the field for sure.
Yeah.
The last player that I want to highlight is a very interesting case. So a player that maybe a lot of people have not really heard of. Actually, these are two players, I should say. Giulio Doratiotto, if I am anywhere near that with my Italian pronunciation, and Pop Marboye, who is Senegalese. So Pop Marboye is, like I said, from Senegal, but he went to Clemson University. He was going to be one of the highest rated prospects if he went into the MLS draft, and he decided not to do that. He decided to join the Phoenix Rising. Now, I'm not sure the ins and outs of why he did that, but this was, again, one of the best players in college soccer.
Okay.
He's going to be a defensive-minded player, probably a left back or left center back, if I'm going off of his time at Clemson. And so I'm really interested to see ultimately why he chose to join the USL. I don't know if that means that he thinks that he wants to jump to Europe sooner rather than later, because MLS often gets in the way of that.
Yeah.
But if he can hit the ground running here, he's a very young player. I think if he's 20 years old, then he's just turned 20. So it's just very interesting to see this type of move being made by a player of his caliber. The other player, Giulio Doratiotto, has signed from Juventus. Juventus is one of the best clubs in Italy. If you have not heard of them, they are way up there. So the fact that, yes,
James.
Eureka might be a little upset by that, but at the same time, they are very good and they have a very good youth team. How he ended up here, it's very similar to Pop Marboy. I'm really not sure, but these are two very interesting players, and they're making a case study for, maybe Phoenix are trying to do a certain new type of thing.
Yes.
And if that's the case, then I kind of wish them luck, because I think that's very compelling for the league. But how they made it work is I don't know yet. So we're going to see how it plays out.
Well, to go back to another great interview that you guys conducted over this offseason when we had Rowdies legend Georgie Ristoff on, you guys really talked about the youth systems and creating academies and doing things like this. I would hope that the end result of all these signings across the league really is that you see the trend continuing of the USL Championship selling young, promising players. One, giving them a ground to come in America and show their talent and give them professional level soccer, high level soccer to do the wares and show that they can go over to a European side, or we've seen in a number of different countries. I mean, we've got one of our own academy kids in Germany, right? So that I think is the bigger trend as a league. If the USL can be known as like, you can send your youth here, they will play hard soccer and they will be better for it. And then, if Phoenix or the Rowdies or whoever can be a beneficiary and make some money at the end of it, of being maybe a training ground for the highest level of youth prospects that are out there, give them a shot. Like if Juventus wasn't going to play him, he's sick of losing to Roma all the time. Come on over here, come lose to the Rowdies. I'm okay with that. Let's play some good soccer. And if it's a win-win for the clubs, if they can get younger talent and then maybe get a little bit of a fee in the future for them. So I wish that they did more of this. I wish that every team had at least a couple young upcoming kids that we know maybe they won't be here forever, but they'll be here for a certain amount of time. And then when they move on, it's at the benefit of the club. This was a good experience for everyone involved. Maybe you want some hardware, and then at the end of it, there's a nice big fat check for the Rowdies or whoever the club is. I think that's a great way to do it. I don't think there's shame in being able to do that. At least part of your roster be built with that intention in mind.
Yeah, and you did mention that they might end up leaving with some hardware. Like I said, I think it will be very hard for Phoenix to repeat, but at the same time,
Yeah,
it is
sure.
possible that this is a stronger roster than they had last year.
Yeah,
It is actually possible that that is the
yeah,
case. So,
yeah,
Phoenix is going to be up there one way or another. That much we know.
yeah.
Now, another team that was up there and a recent winner of the USL Championship,
Yep.
San Antonio. This is going to be a little bit weirder because San Antonio is going through what I would call a heavy transition year. So
Yeah.
last year, Alan Marcina, a new coach, comes in and he kind of I don't know. I shouldn't say he's a new coach, but what I really am trying to say is that he tried to implement a new system. That's
Okay.
that's the deal. He's not a new coach because he's been there, obviously, but it is a new system that he seems to be trying to implement in San
Yeah.
Antonio. So the new system is well, so far it has sent a couple players packing out the door. One
Mm.
of those was Jordan Farr, a very, very good goalkeeper and the goalkeeper of
Mm.
the year 2 years ago when San Antonio won the whole league.
Yeah.
He is now in Tampa Bay, which is great for us here at RBLR Sports. Um, he has been replaced by Pablo Cisniega, a Mexican goalkeeper who was previously with Charlotte in MLS. He did not get a lot of playing time either with them or their MLS Next Pro team, so I don't know what that means for him. And Kendall McIntosh, a player from California who was with the Sporting Kansas City team in MLS, and he got, bit part pieces as a backup goalkeeper in their MLS team, but mostly played with the MLS Next Pro team. So I don't know if they're going to give him the reins, but it's just very interesting that Jordan Farr is replaced by these two guys. There have been a couple of other players that have come in over this offseason to complement, what we know to be some already pretty good players at the back. One of those is Mitchell Tainter. He has been with San Antonio for however long now, but he was the defender of the year when they won the championship 2 years ago. And alongside him now is one player, Kendall Burks, a center back who was with Chicago Fire last year. And it's really interesting to see who else they brought in. Another player that I wanted to highlight is this guy named Richard Winbichler, who is from Austria. He was playing in China last season, but he's originally from Austria. These are just
China or Korea?
well, I one of those.
I remember it being an Asian, but
Oh, it is China. It is China.
it's
But
China. Okay, all right.
either way, these are putting all of these guys together around what is definitely a very good spine.
Okay.
They do have, a good spine built up already, and that could just be Mitchell Tainter, and it would be good. It's not, but it could
Yeah.
just be him, and you would still be looking at it. Regardless, there is some turnover here that I think is going to be very interesting for them to try and put together, especially in the transitional year of Alan Marcina implementing this new system that he's trying to work on. The only other player that I wanted to highlight quickly is Kevin Lambert on loan from Real Salt Lake.
Yes.
Obviously, if you know the USL, you know the name Kevin Lambert. He was with
Yeah.
Phoenix Rising for years.
Yes.
Was not with them last year when they won the championship because he was so good that he got sold to Real Salt Lake in MLS.
Yeah.
I guess he wasn't getting used enough, so they've sent him on loan here to San Antonio. And a spine of Tainter in the back and Lambert in front of him, already fantastic.
Yeah.
But like I said, I just don't know exactly how it's going to work with all these newer guys coming in and playing a newer system around them.
Yeah. I mean, look, Tainter, amazing defender, one of the top in the league. And Lambert can play in the back three, but can also be used in the midfield, right? I mean, he's a creator. He's a great passer. But also like Juan Agudelo is a name that has, you hear him, a big Birmingham guy that we hated playing against, and playing against him in San Antonio won't be fun either. The question that I have is like, how as they're changing their tactics to, the short passing game, and they're bringing in all these guys, Where does Jorge Hernandez kind of fit? I mean, he's the closest thing to a 10 that I think they have. And is he just going to be kind of lost in the shuffle, or is this going to create more things for him as an attacking midfielder to be able to use some of that dynamic play and kind of, I think he has upside to become more of a household name if all the other pieces fit, and if all the new kind of tactics come together. I think he's a name that maybe not a lot of people know about, but I think he's a guy that wouldn't be surprised if you see him climbing up the scoring ranks. So
Yeah, no, that is a good name to highlight as well here. He is originally from, well, I guess Mexico, but also spent some time in California in his youth.
yeah,
And was he went through the LA Galaxy youth system, and now he's been looking for a team to, stay in long term here. I
yeah,
think what ultimately comes down to is, like you said, it's going to be the system. Are we going to see three at the back like we've seen for San Antonio for so long? They
right,
do have enough center backs that they could do that. But maybe that's not something they want to do this year. Maybe they want to do something that would allow them to just keep more players higher up the field. I'm really
yeah,
not entirely sure at
yeah,
this point in the offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see. They have players like Mohamed Omar, who is from Canada, who could partner with Kevin Lambert as, the central midfielders. Mohamed Abu as well. He's from Ghana, but he is a usual player for San Antonio's central midfield unit. And if Jorge Hernandez ends up kind of playing in front of them, I wouldn't be surprised by that. But yeah, I'm very interested to see ultimately how many center backs San Antonio play with. I think it could still be three at the back, and they could still implement a more attacking style because they were always very, very defense heavy, defense first, and then we'll
yeah,
find our way into the game, and it was very successful for them. But
yeah,
I think that whatever Mr. Marcina does with this new roster, it's just going to be putting it all together. And
yeah.
honestly. Excuse me. The other thing is by the end of the year, they will probably have put something together. We just don't know exactly how good or what that ceiling is.
Yeah. Anything else to say about San Antonio before we move on to our next team?
Well, like I said, with this transition coming up, I don't know exactly what the ceiling is going to be for their
Yeah,
playoff spot,
yeah,
but they are making the playoffs, folks. You
yeah,
already know it.
yeah. Well, I guess next on our list is Orange County. Orange County is a team that a couple years ago beat us in the final, and they've gone through their own transition period. It's kind of I mean, they made a hell of a run to beat us, so I don't know where they thought they were gonna kind of build off of that. But one thing I do know is that that to me the biggest question is how do they look after losing Milan Iloski? Like
Yeah.
that was their offense, in my opinion. It was like basically it was get the ball to him and pray for the best. But they're very young. I mean, and what's crazy is, I mean, we returned a lot of players over the last, in the Neil Collins era. You kind of knew where everyone was going to be, maybe a couple additions here and there, but I don't think we ever returned 10 starters ever. Orange County is retaining the majority of their roster. The two that I wanted to talk about were Dylan Powers and I forget if it's Marcus Nakim or Nakim, but Marcus Nakkim and Dylan Powers. These are two dudes in the back that um, Marcus is a great defender, especially man on man. You look at his stats, very good in man on to kill the strikers and kind of disrupt any kind of offensive action that you want. And then Dylan Powers can quickly turn around the field with long passes and creating chances after they've made a good defensive stop. So I think that's the key to what they do. Now they've added some guys. I think it's not a 1-for-1 swap, because that's just not going to happen. But they brought in Christian Sorto, I think, as the most dynamic forward to sort of replace some of that offense. They also brought in Ethan Zubak, but from what I've read, some scouting reports, Zubak isn't exactly a dynamic playmaker of his own accord to create his own chances. However, He's running around. He's always trying to make himself available in the position. But then their goalkeeper Duran Ferry is another big addition that I'm reading. Is like I believe he's like a very, very, very up and coming youth goalkeeper. But you tell me. That's kind of what I've read and what I put together in my notes. But what are your feelings on Orange County?
Yeah, obviously that is probably one of the biggest losses of the offseason. Maybe, up there with the Jordan Farr types, the exodus from Pittsburgh. These are, big names to lose. But yeah,
Yeah.
Milan Alonski is going to be very hard to replace here. So they do have his brother Brian, and that should be noted. He's not a slouch or anything, but to specifically make up for the player that Milan Alonski is and having lost him, I would assume that is mainly going to be down to the youth Bryce Jamison, someone
Okay.
that they've been using quite a bit, including last year. He is 18 years old and has already almost 30 appearances for Orange County, but he's a very good player in his own right. I think that he's going to step up and he's going to be, there's just going to be a lot more responsibility on his shoulders this year because they kind of need to. They need him to step up and they need him to put more goals in the net, more assists on the field. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for him. Another player that they brought in that I think is going to be an interesting one is Cameron Dunbar. He's originally from Southern California, LA Galaxy youth product. Unfortunately for him, it didn't really work out at LA Galaxy, and then he moved to Minnesota, and it worked out even less, actually. So him coming to Orange County is, A, it's a homecoming of sorts, but B, it's like he's 21 years old. It's not make or break in terms of him having a successful career by any means, but it is make or break in terms of him getting to be the type of player who I think from everything I've read about him, he wants to be. He's very keen on ultimately getting over to Europe and playing there. I think that is the goal for anybody who is a youth prospect because that's the highest level of the game, obviously. So if he wants to do that, it's getting close to put up or shut up time, and this is going to be the year to do that.
Yeah.
The other player you already mentioned, Christian Sorso, he's obviously going to be one of the guys who's responsible for creating chances, but Ethan Zubak, he's not there for anything but to finish. He is there to finish every chance that they can give him, and I think that he has it in him to do that. He's been in MLS for a while now, and it really hasn't turned around for him, but at this point, he's turning 28. This should be the twilight of his career. The top level that anybody gets to is around 26 to 30 years old. This is when he really needs to start stepping it up. And I'm assuming that he can do that as long as they continue to provide him chances, which I can only imagine they will. Then he should be the player who's ready to, put those in. And I expect that he will be able to do that at a pretty good level. We'll see if it turns out that way. And you mentioned goalkeeper too. I will say between Duran Ferry and Colin Shuttler, I don't expect Duran Ferry to get a ton of playing time just yet, but I think that he's nipping at Colin Shuttler's heels. And, that's saying something for someone he's not going to be 18 until September.
Yeah,
so
he's very, very young. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's one more team on our list for tonight. I don't have a lot of notes at all on the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. They added Ronaldo Damas. That's a name that's haunted us for many a contest of absolute viable scoring threat. It's just that because he's on that roster, it means that our guy Juan Tejada is probably buried on the bench still. I keep thinking that Tejada was going to break through and that he did all right in Indy, but then obviously they was going to give him more opportunity in Colorado Springs, but it hasn't turned into a starting role for Juan Tejada yet.
No, not yet. And I don't know if this is going to be the place to do it, as you said, but I will say, I think that Colorado Springs is looking better than they did last year. Colorado Springs is a good team. They have a good roster, but last year that ultimately led to them being 5th in the Western Conference, and they did not go very far in the playoffs. So Ronaldo Damas, as you said, he comes in on loan. That's already a very, very good scoring threat. He has done so well in the USL Championship, and I can't imagine that that's not going to be the case again this year for Colorado Springs. With his name out of the way. There are a couple of other guys that I wanted to highlight here. Speedy Williams is
Yeah. Okay.
if you know the
Yeah.
USL, you know Speedy Williams. He has
Yep.
been around this league since what, 2015, however long. He was with Louisville for a long period and then Miami
You're right.
as well, the Miami, as we like to say. He is also a player who at the USL championship level is still a regular starter for the Jamaican national team. Now, why that hasn't turned into him playing in MLS, I don't really know. I don't really care. It's
Sure.
great for this league and it's great for him. He is a great, great player. And I'm just, if they can put all the right pieces around him and let him create the way that we all know he can from
Yeah.
his kind of, let's say, quarterback position in the midfield,
Yeah.
that's going to be great for Colorado Springs overall. To do that, they have brought in a player, somebody that Carlos really wanted to have come to Tampa Bay, and that was Aiden Rocha, former Georgetown player who ultimately went to Loudoun United last year, had what I thought was a pretty good year. And unfortunately, it was Colorado Springs who snapped him up. And he will probably be one of the players who is tasked with creating the space for Speedy Williams to do what he does best with the ball in the center of the midfield and just find players who are out on the wings who can then cut the ball back in for that great finisher, Ronaldo Damas. So that is how I see this team playing. It's going to come down to, are the wing players good enough to do that? And you look at who's out there. They've got another Jamaican international, Malik Foster, pretty good there. They've got a Salvadoran international, Jairo Enriquez. He can play out on the wing. And they have a couple of other guys who, will fill in here and there. And another player to highlight who is also a Jamaican international, Tyreek McGee. He is going to be important in that, attacking unit as well. So between the international players that they've got, which are, let's say, Ronaldo Damas up top, Jairo Enriquez on one wing, Malik Foster on another, Speedy Williams and Aiden Rocha in the center of the midfield, and probably Tyreek McGee in front of them, that is a really good unit.
Okay.
I think they're going to score a lot of goals. It's whether
that
or not,
I believe.
Yeah, it's whether or not they have the defensive chops to really keep players out and keep other teams off the board.
Yeah.
They do have some good center backs. I don't know if they have some center backs who are renowned around the league. And I also kind of wonder what they're going to do in net, because the two goalkeepers that I see listed, those are Joe Rice and Christian Herrera. These are guys who have been in the USL, but they don't necessarily have the greatest track record. So that's the only thing that I'm like, maybe that's a weakness here.
Well, because I think you alluded to it earlier. Colorado Springs, I think we would have put in the second tier. Or
if there were three
tiers, they wouldn't be in this first tier with the rest of them. They definitely seem like the one of these things doesn't look like the other kind of thing out of this group of teams. But what they do is, again, this is just an assumption, but in the West, they score a lot of goals, and in the West, over the last few years, that's been the case. Is like, that is just, if you want to stay up late on ESPN Plus and watch 7 goals in a game happen, it's just, that's welcome to the Western Conference, guys. Where the East is just a dogfight with like all of our teams are these defensive juggernauts in the past few years. Which is why, like, when we're looking at kind of a lot of these teams, they're bringing in good midfielders, they're good at bringing in great defenders. I mean, that's why I think the Sacramentos and Phoenixes of the world, and even San Antonio, I guess, they have top level defenders in this league, where Colorado's basically just saying, let's just go, let's pedal to the metal, try to put 4 or 5 on the board and see if that holds. And that got him a little bit of success last year. I don't know how far that's going to take him this year, because I think the West is trying to get better defensively for sure.
Yeah, I think that they probably have the chops to get a lot of goals up there. It will be more difficult for sure. Just as you said, it will be more difficult, but keeping the other teams out, I think that's going to be probably the problem for them based on the roster that I'm looking at. So, we will see how it goes, but I do expect them to do better than last year for sure. And again, that was a 5th place last year.
Yeah. Well, I guess anything to talk about? Is there any bigger thoughts now that you've talked about every single Western Conference team? Is there any? I sort of made a couple league-wide statements on or conference-wide statements on that. How do you feel overall? I mean, we just talked about the best of the best. I think in the West. How's your feelings on the Western Conference, just as like a complete at a glance?
Well, I think that there are three really top tier teams in the Western Conference.
Okay.
If I were going to look at the Eastern Conference, I would probably say there are also three top tier teams.
Okay.
That would include the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So, maybe it's pretty even. I would say that they're going to be, every team is going to have to find its weaknesses, and every team is going to have to find some type of solution for those over the course of the year.
Yeah.
But at a starting point, they're definitely a top three and a top three. And, it ultimately comes down to the bottom half.
Yeah.
And that's where I see the West maybe looking not as good, but at the same time, even their worst team, Las Vegas, has gotten better. So
Yeah.
it
That's the
could end up
big
being that the
question mark.
West
Yeah.
Conference is stronger this year at the end of it. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean, just overall in the West, I mean, Sacramento, Phoenix, San Antonio, Las Vegas on paper looks really good. We'll see if they
They're
can put it
looking better
together.
than Miami is right now.
Oh, for sure. And then you're talking is Orange County and Memphis and El Paso and all that kind of in the same boat, where in the East, I think Louisville, us, Charleston, but then you have these two teams that on paper look really like North Carolina and Rhode Island on paper look like they're going to be like North Carolina for sure looks like they should be in a top league. Like if they were in the West, I think they'd be like the second or third best team in the West on paper. Now they have to put this together though. Rhode Island is sort of in that Las Vegas question mark to me, where it's like
We just don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be a train wreck. It could also be the surprise breakout of the year, and they're hosting home games in the playoffs. So, but that's what makes it exciting. And this weekend we get to start watching and start answering some of these questions. It just stinks that we have to wait one more week, but it's okay. Save the best. We get to fashionably enter the season a week late.
That's actually that's the best way to put it. That is the best way to put it. But yeah, everyone, thank you for listening to that portion. I think, just as Eureka said, we have finished all of the teams in the Western Conference. We have finished all the teams across the league, except for one. You know who it is. It's the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and we will be getting to that overall next week, of course, because we have a game to cover for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Now, if you have not, please tune in to RBLR Deportes as well as our show related to the Tampa Bay Sun. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there, so I can't wait for our next episode to come out on the Tampa Bay Sun. And if you haven't already, I just want to say you should start looking to get those tickets for the season opener, folks.
Yes.
It is coming up. It is coming up. It is not this weekend. It is the weekend after. So make sure that you're there, because I don't know what else to tell you. You got to be there.
Well, and you could follow us. You could follow along. We give you more of the Rowdies that you love. If you follow us on RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads. We are also at RBLR Rowdies on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. Even if they go down for a couple hours, we have you covered on all of the formats wherever you want. But you can also follow me at Eureka RBLR right there. I talk a lot about professional wrestling. I talk a lot about the business of some things. I'm a little smart-assed on Twitter. I throw my things out there, but every once in a while I get pretty serious. And if you have any questions, you can directly to me. More than happy to talk to you about whatever. James, how can an enthusiast find you on one of these social media platforms?
Yeah, I am mostly on Twitter, and that is at RBLR James K.
Well, look, I told you earlier, if you got this far into the podcast, you're one of us. Hit the button, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow wherever you're listening to this. Hit it. It helps us out immensely. Just do it. I see the data. I look in the data. I know that about half of you guys are listening to this and you haven't hit the button yet. Do it. It's right there. It helps us, and it's free 99. But listen, if you're not listening to us, or if you're not seeing us on YouTube, you're not getting the full experience of the awesomeness that is James Knowles over there. So him and Carlos looking good every week, sounding good every week, and I'm just so thrilled that we get to do this every week for you. So thank you. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, but more importantly, get your behind to Al Lang. I want to shake hands. I want to high five. I can't wait to see everyone again. It's like a family reunion every week that we get to do this, and it's been too damn long. James Knowles, let's go, buddy.
Yep, I cannot wait. Barring some type of emergency, you will see me there. So I will be there, folks. Eureka will be there, folks. Make sure you tune out and make sure you say hi. And in the meantime, as always, come on, you Rowdies.
You carried this program, buddy. You're the MVP.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.